Hola queridos oyentes. Hoy escucharán una historia interesante. Pero primero no se olvide de suscribirse a nuestro canal. Disfruten viéndolo.
Mi esposa y yo vivimos una feliz vida matrimonial durante 15 años, al menos así me parecía. Nos casamos cuando ambos estábamos en nuestros 20 años, en el cuarto año de la Facultad de Filología. Jóvenes ingenuos, creíamos en el amor inmortal y nos casamos de inmediato. Luego, yo tenía trabajo y ella se ocupaba de las comidas caseras. Una rutina diaria que nos arrastraba a ambos y ya no nos veíamos como aquellos jóvenes estudiantes de 20 años enamorados que soñaban el uno con el otro todos los días. Mi querida Annie, a los 35 años, parecía tener la juventud y belleza de una mujer de 25, pero las tareas diarias y las labores domésticas la convertían en una ama de casa ordinaria, sin interés para nadie. Yo observaba a otras mujeres y hacía comentarios sobre su apariencia, estilo de vestir y sus talentos culinarios, pero no dejaba de amarla ni por un minuto, porque sabía que ella era la que me había entregado su corazón, aunque no me hubiera dado un hijo o una hija. Eso me oprimía y a veces me molestaba, pero no podía cambiar nada. Ya habíamos empezado a pensar en la adopción y de alguna manera eso no encajaba con esta idea. Ocasionalmente le regalaba flores como señal de festividad, generalmente en su cumpleaños o en el Día de la Mujer, porque no pensaba que fuera necesario sin una razón en particular. Y ella se enfadaba porque yo era un romántico desesperado, aunque como me había dicho antes, aunque no me escribas memorias ni me cantes serenatas bajo el balcón ni me cubras con pétalos de rosa, de alguna manera me siento bien contigo en casa. Como si fueras el espíritu afín del que todos esos escritores hablan apasionadamente en sus textos. Después de eso, solía ruborizarse y acurrucar su cabeza en mis hombros. Solía cansarme de estas palabras y me alegraba escucharlas como una composición musical favorita en repetición. Pero con los años, desapareció y ya no evocaba las mismas impresiones y placer, palabra por palabra. Ese es el problema de todas las parejas que han estado juntas durante mucho tiempo, porque acostumbrarse a un ser querido con el tiempo hace que esas palabras y acciones que eran especiales pierdan para ti el significado especial que te gustaría conservar, pero no todos lo logran. Dime, ¿has dejado de amarme? ¿No hice lo suficiente para que recibieras ni siquiera un ápice de amor y respeto? Y me convertí en ama de casa gracias a ti. Esto también es culpa tuya, tú me convertiste en esto. Las peleas usualmente comienzan con estas palabras, y yo la amaba de alguna manera según mi algoritmo, que ella no entendía y que yo no podía explicarle. ¿Por qué estás aquí? ¿Te escondo en el sótano y no te dejo salir? No, simplemente insistes en hacer siempre lo que es bueno para ti. Yo cocino lo que te gusta, limpio después de ti como si fueras un bebé. Y me atormentas por mi apariencia. Por supuesto, es más fácil estropear a una mujer que ayudarla, pero ¿dónde está eso que es obvio que personas como tú, dueños del mundo entero, estaban haciendo algo por alguien que no fueras tú mismo? Llegará el momento en que mi paciencia estallará y te dejaré. Bueno, ¿a quién le harás falta, mi querida? Ni siquiera un perro callejero te miraría. Entendía todo el dolor que estas palabras le causaban y traté de asegurarle que yo era el único que la necesitaba. Ya veremos acerca de eso. Esas discusiones aburrieron a todos, especialmente a mí. No quería escuchar sus reproches. También tenía la culpa por todo este sinsentido femenino de palabras y lágrimas, porque no podía entender cómo me involucraba en esto ni cómo arreglarlo. Siempre fui el dueño, siempre y en todo, y por lo general ella lo reducía al hecho de que yo era simplemente como era y eso era mi especialidad. Duró alrededor de medio año, día tras día, pero un día, cuando regresé del trabajo, Annie no hizo un escándalo, sino que simplemente, como de costumbre, preparó la mesa para la cena con platos que me eran desconocidos. Desde el umbral ya entendí que algo estaba mal aquí. En la cena, comenzó a hablar con una sonrisa. Sabes, mi querido, encontré un nuevo trabajo. Está lejos, incluso en las afueras de la ciudad, pero hay mejores perspectivas. Envié mi currículum y me aceptaron. ¿Crees que estoy loca? Solo habrá que dividir las tareas del hogar en dos o contratar a una ama de casa para que me ayude. ¿Qué te parecen mis cambios? Después de estas palabras, simplemente herví. ¿Cómo podía no pedir siquiera mi permiso o mi opinión? ¿No le importaba y desde cuando mi opinión no le interesaba? Especialmente porque no le faltaban tareas domésticas. Planeaba intervenir. Después de todo, no la había tomado como esposa para eso, sobre todo porque tenía mi propio negocio y proveía completamente todas las necesidades que existían. En pocas palabras, teníamos suficiente dinero para todo. Y no veía la necesidad de que ella trabajara. En mi cabeza, una mujer era un talismán de comodidad en el hogar, con luz y bondad que llenaba el espacio del hogar, no una mujer de carrera con una mente fría. ¿Realmente crees que te mantendrán en este trabajo por mucho tiempo? Y además, no contrato amas de casa, y tú eres mi esposa para precisamente eso, y si te preocupa el dinero, lo tenemos. ¿Así que me consideras solo una sirvienta? No esperaba nada más. Así piensa lo que quieras, pero de todas formas iré a trabajar, necesito socialización y no ser tu sirvienta. Sí, has sido mi esposa durante años, y conociendo a las mujeres como tú, seguramente te cortejarán otros hombres que quieren una relación contigo. Por lo tanto, no apruebo tus acciones y creo que no es para ti. Solo te interesa tu ego y nada más. Si me hubieras prestado atención y me hubieras considerado una mujer, todo hubiera sido diferente. Así que por primera vez en años, saldré de tu sombra y haré lo que quiero. Solo intenta hacerlo de otra manera, y si alguno de los hombres siquiera te habla, los arrasaré a ti y a él. ¿Puedo hacerlo? Sabes, después de tantos años, no me importan tus quejas y berrinches. No es asunto tuyo y haré lo que quiera. Y tú inténtalo. Aún me reprendía y me molestaba hasta el fondo su mirada engreída y su rostro feliz. Lo odiaba más cuando la recogía del trabajo y sus colegas masculinos le sonreían, porque Annie era verdaderamente una mujer de belleza celestial a pesar de su edad. Me asustaba pensar que a alguien le gustaba y alguien se burlaba de ella, y me confundía que empezara a odiar sus acciones y pasatiempos, porque estaba empezando a distanciarse de mí. Quería acallarla, subyugarla, asustarla para que perteneciera solo a mí, quería devolverla a casa para que una vez más llenara la casa con la calidez en la que tanto deseaba sumergirme. Y luego, un año después, llegó a casa con un ramo de flores. Ante mis preguntas sobre dónde lo había conseguido, dijo que lo compró ella misma, para complacerse a sí misma, porque yo simplemente no era capaz de hacer algo así. Otros pequeños detalles comenzaron a aparecer que indicaban que mi esposa tenía un pretendiente. Por ejemplo, cambió el estilo de la falda por uno más atractivo, empezó a experimentar con peinados y simplemente parecía una escolar enamorada. Y era visible a simple vista para cualquiera. Finalmente, supe de la existencia del amante a través de un mensaje en su celular donde el desgraciado describía su belleza y su amor por ella. Y entonces me enfurecí y comencé a gritarle, agitando los puños y abofeteándola por primera vez en mi vida. No lo quería, no sucedió a propósito, pero ya ocurrió. Estaba enojado y la odiaba por su traición y a mí mismo por un acto masculino tan bajo. No era el tipo de bastardo que levanta la mano contra una mujer, pero hoy sucedió. Me prometí a mí mismo nunca hacerlo porque vi cómo mi madre sufrió por los golpes de mi padre. No eran los mejores recuerdos de mi infancia, que prefiero olvidar. Si crees que me vas a retener con esto, estás equivocado. Ya no puedes quebrantarme ni intimidarme. Soy independiente de ti. Acepta, ya no soy tuya y no pertenezco a ti, Harry. Esto es el fin de nuestro matrimonio. Haré que vuelvas a ser como antes, destruiré tu ego y a tu amante con todo lo que tenga. No lo dejaré así. Eres un maniático, busca tratamiento. Y estoy pidiendo el divorcio. Es mejor estar sola que con un idiota como tú. ¿Y cómo no vi antes a ese monstruo egoísta en ti? Y realmente empacó sus cosas y se marchó sin decir una palabra. Y eso me mató, me molestó y simplemente no podía creer que se atreviera a cambiarme por algún oficinista, porque yo una vez fui su universo. Mi cabeza estaba llena de pensamientos. ¿Realmente soy un monstruo e incapaz de amar? ¿Por qué se fue? ¿Y qué hacer después? ¿Cómo recuperarlo todo y vale la pena hacerlo siquiera? Decidí ir al bar y emborracharme, la llamé y le grité, la culpé por perder nuestra aparentemente feliz vida familiar que estaba bien para ambos. La maldecí por no poder tener un hijo y simplemente derramé toda la suciedad sobre ella del marido borracho que dejó atrás. Ella no me escuchó por mucho tiempo y cambió rápidamente su número de teléfono y solicitó el divorcio. Solo me enteré cuando llegó la citación. Después del divorcio, que nos fue otorgado muy rápido, dividimos a la mitad la propiedad que habíamos adquirido durante este periodo. Me sumergí aún más, aunque esto no era característico de mí antes. Siempre he tenido un espíritu fuerte y los problemas y derrotas eran solo una broma para mí. Y me di cuenta de que ella era el talismán del destino que me ayudaba. Vagué por el fondo de mi vida. Pero ya en ese estado entendí que ella pagaría por su traición por completo. Salí de mi oscuro bosque que era completamente diferente en mi alma, lleno de malicia y odio por esta mujer y su felicidad. Decidí firmemente vengarme, la única pregunta que quedaba era, ¿cómo? ¿Cómo vengarme de manera que arruiné su vida y no termine en prisión? Tenía conexiones en el mundo criminal porque el gran negocio lo requiere. Si tienes amigos allí, el negocio tranquilo está garantizado, pero primero necesitas llevar un regalo simbólico y en cualquier caso tendrás socios confiables. Me reuní con conocidos y les pedí que encontraran a mi exesposa, o más bien, la casa en la que ella y su amante vivían, porque sabía que ella no se había mudado con él, sino a otro lugar ya con él. Los encontraron en 2 días y ya tenía su dirección. Sorprendentemente, no se mudó lejos, solo más cerca de su lugar de trabajo y al otro extremo de la ciudad. Era una casa tranquila que correspondía a su mundo interior, tranquila y armoniosa. Desde este lugar empecé a sentir náuseas de asco y resentimiento. La siguiente tarea era organizar el robo de propiedades en la casa. Mi empresa y yo sabíamos cuándo no estarían allí y cuándo estarían en casa, así que la organización fue simple, especialmente porque el área era tranquila y no tenía cámaras de vigilancia ni otras novedades. No tomamos nada, solo revolvimos todo, hicimos un desorden, rompimos platos y su vajilla favorita. Esto fue solo el comienzo. Sabía que no presentaría una denuncia a la policía hasta que se le acabara el dinero, hasta que se cansara de aguantarlo. Porque en la relación actual, ella es amada, su amado Charlie la complace con todo y escucha sus pensamientos. Por lo tanto, tuve tiempo para un vuelo de fantasía, como exactamente llevarla al borde de un colapso nervioso y roerla desde el fondo de mi corazón. Realicé toda clase de pequeñas cosas desagradables, le envié mensajes anónimos con insultos y amenazas, mis amigos constantemente le inculcaron el miedo de que la estaban persiguiendo, y la gota que colmó el vaso en mi dulce venganza fue la oportunidad que tuve de conocer a Charlie. En ese momento mi malicia y enojo se despertaron, lo atacé y comencé a golpearlo con todas mis fuerzas, no veía dónde estaba golpeando, simplemente lo golpeaba como un saco de boxeo. Me detuve solo cuando perdió el conocimiento, pero seguía respirando, Simplemente me di la vuelta y me fui con la esperanza de que lo encontrarían y tal vez lo salvarían. Luego me di cuenta de que necesitaba detenerme, porque de lo contrario me arrastrarían a prisión y estaría allí el resto de mis días. Más tarde, Annie me escribió un mensaje que definitivamente no esperaba después de todo lo que hice por ella. Carrie, sé que estás involucrado en todo esto. No presentaré una denuncia con la condición de que nunca aparezcas en mi vida de nuevo. Creo que ya has desahogado suficiente de tu enojo y resentimiento contra mí, así que por favor déjame a mí y a Charlie en paz. Trata de manejar tu vida por ti mismo, eres bueno, solo necesitas intentarlo un poco. Sinceramente creo en ti y te deseo felicidad. Sinceramente, Anne. Esto me conmovió porque realmente ya había hecho todo lo que quería, así que era hora de salir del pantano en el que me había metido. Me mudé a Roma, a la ciudad que soñaba desde hacía mucho tiempo, cambié mi estilo de vida, abrí un nuevo negocio, ahora tengo el restaurante Oportunidad del Destino y varias tiendas, y también adopté a un Doberman llamado Amador, a quien le brindo todo mi amor por ahora, hasta que mi corazón se llene nuevamente con alguna bella dama. Comprendí mis errores y trabajo en mi ego. A los 36 años, me di cuenta de que no todo está perdido y que todo puede cambiar en cualquier momento. Y probablemente la verdad más importante en todo esto es que la traición solo me ayudó a entender lo que quiero y me brindó la oportunidad de vivir de la manera que soñaba. Esto, por supuesto, te saca de la rutina, pero también te brinda otro incentivo.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.